Hey, my little squad of recruits to this year's Sergeant Rosilli boot camp. Quick recap of our first week, and it was week 6. We started off our boot camp with the song we're regularly singing as we're marching along. Know what science is, use science right, do science good, get bad guy, do science bad, get good guy, bad guy go free. And we said that those points, those verses, so to speak, of this rap song are going to be points that we're going to be hitting as we go through boot camp, diving in more deeply and then bringing it all together. You wrote this down in your notes. We had an intro into our case, and then we had the case questions. Um, we set up the info in our book, and it started with the heading, What is Science Boot Camp? You had the forensic rap. We had the case LCA 101, What Happened to Ruby Missing Persons case. You were given the documentation background where this took place, people that were that we found were involved with the case with us. I had you guys write the case questions, and along with the case questions, you also wrote down the definition of worldview, because one of the things you'll be asked after we're done with this case is to have you guys speculate on what you thought as you watched these two FBI detectives operate in this case, what their worldview was. And the worldview, you wrote down that definition. We had that definition right here at the end. And then yesterday, I gave you this handout rather than having you write it all down of the mission. What's the ultimate thing we're looking to accomplish as we work to resolve this case? You are going to collect evidence, which is the documentation notes that you were to take as we watched the case. So you set up another little sub point here. Notice that we've got underneath the what is science, underneath the case here, which was a sub point of what is science boot camp. We had the sub point of the documentation, the case questions, the case notes that you took down. And I was impressed to see how focused you all were and writing down a lot of information, because you knew at the end, that was part of the mission here, that from your notes create a compelling argument for what happened to Ruby in order to convince them, the audience that you're talking to, your classmates, that your conclusion is the correct conclusion. And then there are some post trial, that's what we're going to be doing Monday, questions that I want you to think about so we can have a rich discussion on this whole obstacle course, the first obstacle course of our What is Science boot camp. Now, what do I want you guys to do? Well, I encouraged you guys, make another little sub point here. I want to see the rough draft in your investigation notebook. Rough draft of what? Rough draft of this right here. You're compiling a story based on the information that we saw as we watched the case that explains what happened to Ruby. Now, it was fun to watch many of you struggle, like Heathcote was trying to do sit-ups with this whole activity. You were upset that the episode didn't give you an answer. You were wanting more information. You were stressed that um, you've never done something like this before. You're not really sure what's going on. And anytime you ask a question, I was thinking about this the other day, ask yourself, is what I'm asking, am I looking for a response from the question that will help me to do my job? Or am I asking a question because I'm looking for somebody else to do the job for me? And it seemed like a lot of you were asking questions where you were wanting me to do the assignment for you. And this is boot camp. Okay. Um, and maybe a lot of you were stressed because you were afraid to fail. Well, boot camp by its very nature, in that it's stretching you to do something you haven't done before and really challenging you to do hard things, is something that failure is inherent into that, but you're not going to get stronger unless you dive in. And that's what I encouraged you at the very beginning of our What is Science boot camp, telling you that the more you lean in, the more you fully engage, the more you put up with the pain and the challenge that you're feeling, even the confusion, and still move forward, the more you're ultimately going to get out of this. I think education needs to be more like this. Things are too easy. So many of my students in the past thought that just coming and sitting in the classroom and doing exactly what I told them is enough for them to be able to be a good student and to get an A in the class. And really, education, while being interesting, I think, and drawing you in and teaching you to be curious and to apply things that you've learned to new things, it also needs to continue to keep stretching you. And that's what we talked about when we went back. At a certain point, I talked to you about andragogy, which is adult learning. You are needing to take more charge and more responsibility for your learning. And that means also encouraging yourself and pushing through when things get difficult, because there's not always going to be somebody there to encourage you. There's not always going to be somebody there to answer your questions. And you need to be able to wrestle through this to come to a conclusion on whatever it is, so that you uh, get the answers that you need in whatever area of your life you're looking to get those answers for. So you are writing really a story, but I hate to use the term story because story also implies that it's something that's made up. This story, though, is something that you're having to bring your imagination to, because we can't go back and see exactly everything that happened. Just like in a real case, we can't go back and see everything that has happened, but you are given certain information. As you're crafting the story, your goal in presenting this concluding argument to a jury of your peers is to take that evidence and to fill in the blanks in such a way that the evidence fills in those blanks, if that makes sense. I don't want you just regurgitating the episode. I want you to sit and say, okay, here is this pool of information. Here perhaps are some ideas of what could have happened to Ruby. What evidence best fits those ideas? And now, how do I arrange those ideas together in a story format, as if you are being the tour guide in walking the jury back through all of those events, from the time that Ruby and Kevin were sleeping there at the campsite to the time when they found her by Lake Okoboji there. And you're weaving it so effectively and so well together, putting in the evidence that the jury is sitting there going, wow, we weren't there, but that explains the evidence, that explains everything. Yes, I'm convinced. That's going to take a little bit of thought. It's going to take a little bit of time. Fortunately, a lot of you have a lot of notes, where in the past, students that just sat there and watched, days later, they go back and they're like, I don't really have enough to draw from. But you are going to be writing just a rough draft. And again, I don't want you to think about this like essays maybe you've written in the past. I want you to concentrate more on the story and weaving the evidence together to convince us of your conclusion than of the format that, oh, it's got an intro paragraph and then it's got supporting paragraphs and it's got all this. This doesn't mean to say that your argument shouldn't be concise and well organized. I just want you to focus on that aspect more than on getting all the grammatical and literary details right in the rough draft. So I'm going to give you points for seeing this. I want to see that you put some time and stuff into this. Then what you're going to do is you're going to type up your rough draft. Again, I'm not requiring a certain font. I'm not requiring paragraphs. I'm not requiring all of this. I want to see that you've done it. And so it is encouraging you to do it, because on Monday, I'm going to be picking people to come to the front of the class and to present their closing argument to the class. Not that you're going to, hopefully you'll be familiar enough after the rough draft and after writing this up that you're not going to sit there and mindlessly just be reading off of this like a robot. Hopefully you can bring, like in a speech class, you can bring some enthusiasm, some of your personality, some of the persuasion in how you're speaking and in your body language to us. But I want you to have something, so as a help for you, that you can look down to or remind yourself of, like notes that you have. I'm going to be collecting those. So those are also going to be points. So a lot of points in this first obstacle course. You know, we've got the points for the notes we've taken so far. You have the points for looking at your case notes, for your rough draft, for the typed up. And yes, I do want it typed up. If you ever need me to print out something for you, come and see me at lunch and send me the email, and I will print it out for you so that you can have it. But I want you working on your typing skills, and I think it is something after you've done your written rough draft that it's important that you do that. It's a little more formal, be a little easier for me and you to read. And yeah, and then you're going to be presenting that on Monday. Questions? Yes, you in the back. What is that? Um, what happens if you don't turn it in? Well, if you don't turn it in, you're not going to get full points for it, but I'm sure you're all going to turn it in. Okay. One thing I really want to emphasize again to you is don't let your fear of failure and your fear of doing this perfectly get in the way or cause you to procrastinate to the point where you're waiting till Sunday night and then you're just frustrated. And I'm trying to help you have fun with this, something I wish more people had helped me to do. It is new, so how are you going to do it perfectly? Don't take the stress off of yourself to do it perfectly. But having said that, I do know that you have good information, and I do know that you guys are smart, and I do know that you can think and that you can put pieces together and to come up with a conclusion. So be confident in yourself. I'm your drill sergeant. I'm telling you, you will do this. Trust in me and in the process. And I'm excited to hear what you will be presenting to us on Monday. I look forward to seeing some of you tomorrow for the booth setup, and then also Saturday for Sukkot. the celebration, and have a good couple of days. Drill Sergeant Rosilli out.